My name is Anjani, and this is a part 2 video. I'll put the link to part 1 so you can have the continuum of how I broke my addiction and part of my addiction story, which is focused more in part 1. So here I'm going to focus more on how I moved through that process. So during the time of being in that relationship, I was pregnant, and so that might have, just take that into consideration because there's a lot going on in pregnancy with hormones, and it's, a time when women become vulnerable anyway, like we naturally become more vulnerable. And I've heard a lot of women talk about, not publicly for sure, and some women don't really, I don't know if they talk about it, but I've heard about it from men when I was in the Navy. When the wife is pregnant, the men cheat on the wife, and it seems to be sort of a normal thing. Or when I talked about it with women from the older generation, I definitely heard a lot of women saying, "Oh yeah, honey, that's what happens. Just, pull the wool over your eyes and pretend that you don't see that." And that really challenged my mental configuration. Like I just couldn't really put that, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. Like how can I just pretend that I don't pretend. Like I'm not a pretender. I don't do that. So I didn't. And at first when I was pregnant, I didn't realize that he was cheating on me. And all the signs that I saw, I took them as me being crazy and insecure, because that's what he would tell me, that I was crazy and insecure, and that's what I believed. And in my own body, when he walked in the room, I would get sick instantly. Like I would feel queasy, and my stomach would get really, like I felt like I was going to throw up every time he would come close to me or just come home, enter the house. And I completely just didn't listen to my body. I thought like, wow, that's weird. I definitely noticed it. It was not unnoticeable, but I didn't take it as a message. I completely didn't associate the two together, and it would happen every single time. He also wanted to spend a lot of time outside of the house, and told me that he wasn't smoking weed, and actually he was smoking weed. And he told, everything he told me, it turned out otherwise. And things would come up, like he would get caught sort of red-handed with certain different situations that came up. And so I was getting lied to repeatedly. And when it would come up, I didn't think about like, oh, well, now I don't trust you. So, or, I never really put, okay, well, that was enough for me to get out of this relationship. It just raised the bar. So it was like, I was always waiting. Okay, well, next time. All right, well, the next time he does something, then that's it. But through that time from 2012, when I was first in this relationship, all the way until the summer of 2015, the most unthinkable things, and it just went on and on and on. I mean, I'll list a few of them only for the purpose of, so you can see the magnitude, okay? Well, he cheated on me. Number one, when I was pregnant, he had a girl who he would go see. And he, when it all came out, he told me he never slept with her. He said actually to this day he had never slept with her. But how can I believe that, But that was happening while I was pregnant. So that's, even if there was no intimacy, that was total emotional cheating, because I needed support, and I felt really alone. I didn't have a partner to talk to, and he was having that relationship outside of our relationship with another woman. So either way, that was happening from the beginning, the whole time. he lied a lot. So that is just, let's just put that in one whole nutshell. It was like constantly. There was prostitution involved, and him using his money to pay for prostitutes and not using that money to put it into our baby, buying diapers or anything like that, and he constantly doesn't still have money. So another big thing, he pushed my daughter, who was at the time 11, and no matter what he says, she says, what we say, I saw him shove her, and she fell, and I called the cops, and he ended up going to jail. And like those three things alone, just, that's a crazy amount of, from my perspective, of too much. Also, he didn't have a car at the time, so he was using my car. So when he would go drive at night to go to shows, to the bar, to see this person, to see that person, to see his extra girlfriend, he was in my car. So he was driving my car to go do those things. I didn't know about the girl that he was going to see, but I did know that he was going, he said he was going to a show. So later I found out that sometimes he was meeting up with that girl. But he was using my car and lived at my place rent-free. A lot of really, all of these things are not okay now. And at the time, I was somehow justifying it in my mind, and saying like, oh, well, he was just stressed out, or he was confused, or it was his first time becoming a parent, and he didn't know. Like, I gave every excuse that I could. And looking back, really, I know that I wanted to believe that, everything I said, I wanted to believe it. But what was happening and what he was doing, if I would have been able to listen to the energy or believe and trust in what wasn't being said, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble, number one. And to touch on that a little bit, I am happy the way that it happened. I wouldn't want to go back and save myself the trouble, because in this process, I have grown and evolved so much. It was probably one of the most meaningful relationships that I've had. So with all of the drama and craziness, oh, let me not forget this. He went on tour where he didn't get paid, was making out with girls, having sex with girls, and one morning he calls me. I ran out of money, and so I rush to the bank in the morning and send him some more money so he's able to have money. Then when I later find out that exact day that he ran out of money, he had spent the night in a hotel with some woman who he had sex with and needed money to buy breakfast. And so, oh my gosh, so these things are some of the heavier things, but it's endless, it's like every day there was something. So anyway, the point I was going to make was that if I were to take that situation out of my life, I would not have learned the things that I've learned. And it has been one of the biggest transformations for me. So sometimes we value relationships or call them successful if they are harmonious and last a long time. To me, this relationship was the most successful because it really turned me around and turned me inside out and killed parts of me. So there was death of ego, death of the sense of self that I had, and death of who I believed myself to be. And in that death, a new being has been born, and I am so thankful for that. So, part of this transformation Number one, I found out who my friends were because some people were able to look me right in the eye and say, one of my good friends said to me, you know, Anjani, what would you say to me if I was telling you this? And so it turned it back around where I was like, well, I would tell you to leave that asshole. So, and she was like, yes, exactly. And some of my friends, you know, in their trying to be compassionate, they just like listen to the stories and they would be like, okay, they weren't being judgmental and they're, you know, really sweet. And I still consider them to be my friends. Not, you know, some of my friends were really harsh and really mean and I was already suffering and crying and they would like kind of throw daggers into it. And I think that they were trying to like be my teacher or like, you know, the day he left, the day he finally left my house and broke up with me. Yes, he broke up with me. I was crying, like uncontrollably crying, and she was like, well, what did she say? Something completely insensitive. And it just stung me so bad. Like, wow, that was really insensitive. But I mean, she had a point. She said something like, well, at least you're not trying to force something to work that's not working, which that was true. I was forcing it to work. I really was invested in making that work because from my perspective, how could it not work? You know, every time in a relationship, I've never been broken up with, number one. And if we did break up, it was like a mutual agreement to end the relationship. So it was shocking to me and disturbing to my sense of self. So really tough and hard stuff here. And I have so much compassion for people who are in the thick of these relationships that I consider to be toxic. Sometimes, I mean, I can't say there's many different levels of this, but I have such compassion for the people in those relationships, and also so much compassion for those who are at the end of it and, you know, trying to break free or have just broken free and all the weird feelings. It's like, you know, the person wasn't doing good things. If they're lying to you and cheating on you and being violent and putting you down and mentally manipulating you and telling you that you're insecure, you're not, you know, any of this stuff. You don't need that in your life. But if you have it in your life, it is definitely a toxic addiction. I'm calling it an addiction because of my situation. I felt that I was addicted and I could not find my way out of it for the life of me. Looking back, and I read astrology, so I looked back at the time frame of my life when that was happening, and I can see some important timings coming up that were in my life at the time. One of them was a Chiron cycle. Chiron is considered the wounded healer. The wound becomes the medicine when Chiron is involved. Chiron was going over my Mars. Mars is the way that we relate to the inner masculine or to men in our lives. So this was like a wounding or showing me a wound that I had with my masculine energy, my inner masculine, the way that I relate to men. So looking back, I'm able to appreciate that cycle did a good job. It was great because I really got the lesson, and the wound becomes the medicine. So now I feel from a lot of work that I've done, I feel that my sacred wounds have been healed and have become an elixir for other people who are going through a similar situation. So just in the last week, I've met and talked to 3 women who are either right in the middle where they still aren't seeing exactly what's happening and they still haven't labeled it as something they need to get out of, or they have labeled it as something they need to get out of and know that it's toxic, or have recently gotten out of the situation. And for all three of those women, it's excruciatingly painful because it is like ripping a piece of you out and showing it to you. You know, when they, in the video games, take the heart out and like show it to the person, it's a lot like that. Very gruesome, I know. So this next part, I'm gonna talk about the things that helped me to get out of it, to remove myself from it, and some ways that some things that have been helpful for me after I got out of it to stay out of it. So it's much like getting off drugs. So I made a video, it's labeled part 3, and the part 3 video is talking about 3 techniques. One of them is to stop talking about it. The second one was to stop talking about it, find something else that you're going to do. So I talked about, some things that I did. So some other place to focus your attention. And the third thing was fire ceremony. So those were some really, it's a 5-minute video, really quick things that you can do that I still think that those are good and important. Here I'm going to talk about some of the things that I found. So the first thing I found was an energy healer. She is very intuitive and works with energy, and she helped me to do cord cutting. She helped me to see see what wasn't being said, and to understand the invisible realm of my own creation, of myself, and of the relationship between us. So that was probably the most helpful thing. I saw her maybe every 2 weeks for about a year. And that was extremely helpful. Then I went to a shamanic practitioner that's local in San Diego. Her name is Katie Weatherup. I'll list links down here in the below part of this video so you can have all this information. She was really helpful. She has a really good, I don't remember, maybe 5 different MP3 recordings that you can buy by donation. It's got cord cutting, space clearing, all of this shamanic hygiene. Those things are ingrained in me. I do them all the time now. It's become a really helpful tool that I use in my life daily. So we had the shamanic practitioner. Then I did priestess training with Lisa Michaels, and 9 months for the priestess training. I did another 9 months of high priestess training with her, and she's got a lot of really beautiful empowerment for women. She's really focusing on women and the divine feminine and masculine in sacred relationship to each other within the woman. She and her work really, really helped me a lot. The next thing I found was the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, which really put a good foundation on my connection to the above. So I had been working for years in earth medicine and with, living in nature, living like literally in nature, in a jungle for years, and, trees. I feel completely comfortable living in a tree house out in in Thailand, in a hill tribe, or in the jungles of India, or I could sleep up on top of a roof out in the suburbs, completely good with that. But the connection to the above, because it's so vast, it wasn't the best. I didn't have the best connection to the above, because for me, I need to, like the way I study body work, I need to see muscles, bones. I need to know them and know their physiology, know where they connect. I need to know the name of them and why they have that name. This is the way my mind works. So Shamanic Astrology Mystery School got me connected to the above in a big way. And this is where I got so much information about feminine and masculine from a planetary concept. That has been huge for me also. I learned about tuning forks, singing bowls, how to heal the heart with all these different techniques. I'm going to put together a PDF file for this particular situation because there's so much helpful information out there if you're going through something like this. And I want to put together a good resource. I'm going to put it together. Definitely get in touch with me if you want to have your chart read so you can at least start to find out what cycle you might be in according to, here's a sample of a chart. So, you know, this in the inside is your natal chart, the moment you were born, and on the outside talks about, or it tells us the movement of the sky at the moment. So we can find out what cycle you're in, what phase of life you're in. We'll find out your inner feminine, your inner masculine, your relationship axis, like why would you ever want to be in a relationship. Starting to find out these things was really helpful for me. Of course, I found out my partner at the time, he was with me during this process. We were broken up since October 2013, but we were together in such a weird dynamic. It was like we weren't together. He wasn't my boyfriend, but I wasn't dating. I'm not actively dating. I still haven't. I don't know why. I'm not sure why. I'm gonna get really clear on that soon because I think I want to start dating again. But for those 2 years, I felt like having him around kind of dulled the pain of, you know, what I felt. So when he left, I felt excruciating pain. And then when he would be around me or come back, it would like soften it a little bit. I still wasn't happy, and I don't think I liked him. I mean, there's qualities about him that I liked, but overall, I think that he helped me to not have to look at my own self. So I focused more on the relationship and him than I did focus on what was agitating me and what I didn't like about my situation. So once I finally removed him from my life, it's almost been a whole year. I've gotten to look at myself in a new way, work on my own projects, work on, you know, what it is that agitates me about myself. And just doing this video alone is like huge for me because I haven't talked about this stuff, especially not publicly, but not to anybody really in this way. So thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna end here, and I'll continue making videos talking about the feminine and the masculine and ways in which we can become more whole and complete to ourselves. And please subscribe, like the video, dislike the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and definitely thank you for watching.